Hello everyone, this is part 10 of What If Naruto Had a Hug That Changed Everything, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. This can't be happening. This can't be happening. A distressed purple-garbed young man with long silver hair and large eyeglasses thought frantically to himself, as he sprinted down a very large and ominously dark hallway. I never dreamed that I'd live long enough to see this day. Never. Reaching a door at the end of the hallway, the pony-tailed young man barged in, standing at the foot of the entrance with a mucho alarmed look on his face. Lord Orochimaru, he bellowed. I know, Kabuto. I know, the pale-skinned Sannin calmly responded, while sitting of his large cushion chair, staring at all of his unnatural artifacts. He has returned. Kabuto entered room and closed the door, before bowing respectful to his lord. Forgive my hasty intrusion, Lord Orochimaru, but it's our men and several of the people throughout our country are in vast numbers, being said, like animals, he grimaced. Orochimaru closed his eyes to compose himself. However, among the townsfolk of Post Town have received the gravest casualties. I just received word that the attacker is at large within the town. King all in sight, Kabuto grudgingly explained. Orochimaru, of all thing people, actually started to sweat as the news progressed. And the Fuma clan? He asked. Kabuto lowered his head. Many of the clan members and allies have fallen in a valiant attempt to stop the intruder. Many of our strongest men have perished, he grimaced again. The snake warrior bared his teeth. Damn it. This won't do. If Oto itself wasn't already as empty as it is now, we'd never be able to lead the initial charge on Konoha, he said with anger. Kabuto acknowledged Orochimaru's words and started to drift in wonderment. Lord Orochimaru. How could that devil still be? I don't know. But if I ever find the bastard who revived him, I'll make sure that a fate worse than death is granted to them. Meanwhile, in Post Town, a darkness drenched in blood, a mist fouled with death, clouds foreboding the end, a town breathing its last breath. The normally quiet population, minus the many hoodlums, was now at an uproar with screams of fear and death echoing throughout the ways. Smoke crept into the air. Blood saturated the buildings and roads. The hacked and cadavers of numerous townsfolk scattered throughout the town, roads, buildings, watering wells, children's playgrounds. It was truly a dark day. A large bundle of civilians, men, women and children alike, all huddled in a corner, as a dark, luminous figure of doom, slowly marched towards them. His form shrouded by a mysterious grey mist that swallowed the town in darkness. The horrors that each and every one of the people had seen was far beyond par and truly horrific. They all trembled at the thought of what would happen to them, now that the monster of a man targeted them with mouse intent. Cornered upon the blood-spatter walls, the frightened town folk looked on at the mess-anger of death looming ever closer to them. Do not be afraid, the man's deep and animalistically gruff voice called out, the end justifies the means. Sacrificing yourselves to me will grant you passage to true peace. Become a part of me. It was at this point that the men of the huddled group decided to step up. No. Men, we must protect the women and children. We will drive this beast out, one of the men protested, gaining battle cheers from the other. It was reluctant at first, but they all agreed that their families came first. With the shaky resolve now hardened, with the notion of fighting to protect their families, till death, the handful, 6 strong men wielding axes, pitchforks, and knives charged at the monster with an intent to kill him or trying, much to their wives' and children's dismay. Why do you resist your inevitable resting? If you continue to defy me, I will be forced to take extreme measures, the demonic man echoed through the mist again. Predictably, the man's words fell on deaf ears, as the 6 men continued the bold charge. Without saying another word, the man halted his own steps as he awaited his attackers. Only problem was, he was very hungry. As the men charged into the death mist against the cries and protests of their loving families, the monstrous man slowly vanished out of sight, but was still there. At first all was quiet for but a few moments, until the terrifying screams and sounds of meat being cleaved and spared from the bone echoed into the air. The women and children cowered in their huddle as they listened helplessly to the non-harmonious atrocities. Within seconds, the screams of the men were whittled down to 2. Then 1. The lone fighter was sniveling and frantically lamenting within the mist. These noises did not last long. With one last blood-chilling scream, a highly sickening, crunching and gushing noise was heard, before a body with absolutely no bottom half came hurtling out of the mist, landing in front of the horrified huddle of women and children. With more blood spattering all over the place, the half-corpse lay lifeless in front of the bunch. A frightened hysterical woman in a white kimono frantically crawled to the fallen man, screaming her lungs out of her chest as she caressed the sides his horror-stricken face. Imagine that, he SD with a face that could scare the S. The dark mare within the fog emerged once again, only this time, his eyes emitted an eerie red glow. It seemed as though he had enough, he had to settle his hunger. Without remorse in the slightest fashion, the dominant cur zipped toward the bunch at speeds thought to be impossible, and before any of them knew it, the head of woman who was screaming at the top of her lungs was instantly crushed and smeared upon the building wall. Screams and squeals assaulted the mare's ears, irritant at best, as the women took their children and tried to escape. Tragedy stuck. Meanwhile, at the quieted village of Konoha, Ino Yamanaka was nervously trekking to a place that she had only visited a handful of time in the course of her entire life. She'd usually only go if Shikamaru and Out Off or Chuji desired her company when they went. Today, however, was very different. Ino knew the exact reason why she had to go there. Deep down inside, she really knew, but that didn't stop her from denying it. Every pore in her body was screaming for her to stop, turn around and walk the other direction, but her legs didn't listen. Okay Ino, calm down. He probably just wants to treat you to some ramen. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's not like he's just going to completely blow a vein tearing you a new one, right? The blonde female tried to console herself. After the way you treated him, you deserve nothing less, her subconscious blurted out. At first Ino frowned to herself when her brain was feeding her that crap, but then her face softened into a null melancholy expression as she knew it was the truth. What bothered her the most was that it was Naruto she was dealing with. Never, in the history of Shinobidom, has Naruto ever made Ino nervous. It was frustrating as much as it was fascinating, a new phenomenon for Ino, that much was certain. At best, no one made her nervous except for when her father got angry, that was about it. She was always the confident one, a trait that she had carried with her ever since her childhood. Now, however, the last person she'd ever expect to see at her own free will is having the same affect as an angry Inoiki. Contemplating all of these things and more, caused Ino to space out and forget that she was even going to meet Naruto at Ikyaku Ramen. As a result, she was sped from HRE thoughts when she heard his voice. Hoi, you made it, Naruto said, while blowing over a steaming bowl of godly ramen. Realizing that she just unconsciously stepped into the lion's, fox's, den, Ino froze in front of the stool next to Naruto. Upon random speculation, Ino realized that the stool she stood in front of was the same one that Naruto was carving with his bare fingers into when she tried to apologize to him. At this point, it was safe to say that she was officially scared. God, what if he did just called me here to tear me a new one? Does he hate me for what I put him through? Is he just waiting for me to get comfortable so he can wolf me down and make me pay for? So, you're gonna sit down, or you're gonna stand there and let your ramen get cold? Chili ramen is depressing, you know, Naruto called out to Ino, shaking her from her guilty thoughts. Predictably hesitant at first, the blonde turquoise did take up the stool next to her fellow genin. Just now noticing the steaming bowl of ramen in front of her, Ino was greatly surprised that Naruto actually spent his money on her. Either he was being very nice or he had money to spare. The blonde female guessed the latter reason. It would make the most sense after all. The mission that they went on had indeed morphed into an A rank, earning him a lot more money than intended, so the logic stands. Still, Ino couldn't help but feel very uneasy about this. The young Yamanaka stared down at her ramen, then shot a worried glance to Naruto, who was blowing upon his serving of that delectable stringy goodness, before gradually devouring it. Once finished with that serving, the shaggy-haired blonde caught Ino staring at him, returning a confused look Ino's way. Naruto swallowed his mouthful. Not hungry, he generously asked. Hearing the blonde kitsune's voice snapped Ino out of her troublesome thoughts once again, making her realize that she was staring at him like a ditz. She quickly averted her eyes back down to the steaming ramen. No, no, I'm starving, but… Naruto closed his eyes. If you're wondering why I wanted you to meet me here, then it's because there's something important that I wanna ask you, he said, before digging into another serving of his meal. Ino gulped at the possible question that Naruto had in mind and searched for any words that she could say upon hearing this. But Naruto unwittingly interjected Ino from her word searching after he had finished his mouth full. First, ramen. Oh, the godly ramen. Feeling grateful on two accounts now, Ino smiled, before picking up the set of chopsticks next to her bowl and dug into her prepaid meal. Not too far from Ichiraku, was our favorite, Finright, pink-haired kunoiki walking through the empty roads smiling to herself. Wow, my first A-ranked mission and I survived. Naruto was right, we really did make a great team, perfect for breaking in and smuggling at least, Sakura said to herself, before remembering the pure irony of yesterday, dropping her mood down a ways. Why? Why did he apologize to me? I deserve so much worse than an apology, and he said he was sorry for kissing me. But why can't I do the same? Why can't I let him know how sorry I am? Am I afraid to? What if he… Her Sakura bashing, chokes back a snicker, was interrupted when her eyes caught the sight of a faint light from around the corner of the building she was walking by. Curious, Sakura loomed around the corner to see two familiar faces getting up to leave Ichiraku. For a reason she could not understand at the moment, Sakura dared not show herself. Instead, she remained hidden, as she watched the black-clad boy and the purple-dressed girl stroll off into a random direction. Oh, that's right. Naruto said that he wanted to talk to Ino after the mission, the jade-eyed female recalled, while stealthily tracking them. At another section of Konoha, a certain trench-coated, fishnet-wearing Junin sat on a bar stool at a saloon, staring down at the shot glass filled with some pretty hard S. She had three shots of the saloon's worst S, and she was already getting a little tipsy. I can't believe this, Anko said to herself, even after all of that. Something troubles you, Anko, the familiar deeply toned voice of Kakashi Hatake sounded from behind the brunette female. Anko didn't even bother to turn around to face the masked copy Nin. What do ya think, Kakashi? I failed, she said with obvious disappointment and grief in her voice. Kakashi took this as an opportunity to pull up a bar stool and sit next to his fellow tipsy Junin. You're still worried about that Ashima girl, aren't you? He asked knowingly. She SD 20 minutes ago, damn it. She was our closest lead to finding out about. I know, Anko. I was there. Did the medics ever find out what caused her death? The silver-haired Junin asked. Anko finished the rest of her shot and slammed the glass on the counter, a poison that was already doomed within her bloodstream. Before we even got her to the hospital, she was perfectly fine, but the moment she entered the door, she started screaming and coughing. She was rushed into intensive care, she explained. Kakashi frowned through his mask. Poison. Well, if it was dormant within her bloodstream and she began to spaz out when she arrived to the hospital, then that means that someone triggered it, Anko shouted out, before jumping from her bar stool and sprinting out of the saloon, despite what little sobriety she had left. With his unfinished sentence hanging in the air, Kakashi simply reached in his shinobi vest and pulled out his oh-so-famous Ica Paradise novel and flipped the pages to where he left off. What a freak HH, he said under his breath, before giggling perversely at the material he was reading. Back in Orochimaru's chamber, Lord Orochimaru, are we to just sit here and do nothing, to let that monster K everyone off? Are we not capable? Kabuto questioned while standing by the snake Sannin, who sat in his chair, contemplating any course of action and their consequences. Kabuto, I am a Sannin, one of the three shinobi of legend. I have been trained by the best and surpassed the best. I have mastered the art of the shinobi with my own augmentations to boot. I have mastered countless jutsu. The one thing I've been an expert at avoiding more than anything during my life as a shinobi, was being stupid, he suddenly barked, flinching Kabuto back. That thing out there, a direct attack would get us both ked. Kabuto inwardly struggled to process everything that he was hearing. For all it was worth, it was simply too hard to believe what Orochimaru was saying. My lord, are you implying that, not even, you, the silver-haired Otonin stopped at mid-sentence when he saw a surprising look of self-disappointment written on his face. Quote. I know him. Even in his weakened and starved state, not even I can. I understand, Lord Orochimaru, Kabuto respectfully conceded. If there's one thing that Kabuto never lacked, it was unfaltering, respect for Orochimaru. The fact that he was so reluctant to take on a bloodlusting beast of a man did not change that. What it did do, was make the young man s in his pants, figuratively speaking, of course. A weakened state and Orochimaru was still unwilling to take him on. All things aside, Lord Orochimaru, our attack on Konoha shall go as planned, Kabuto asked, changing the subject almost immediately. Orochimaru, despite the current situation, smiled deviously at his initial plans to destroy the Konohagakure no Sato. Of course. Living death machine or not, I will not allow anything to hinder my plans. Back at the now officially S-Post town. The entire town was plunged into a darkening light. Oxymoron, I know, but just bear with me. Around the whole area were giant red streams of liquid fluently circling the town. At the S-center of town was the same man responsible for the M, flowing high into the air, glowing with a familiar ominous white glow, as the blood streams of the said townsfolk swirled up to him. Must feed, he groaned demonically, as his meal drew ever closer to him. With the foreboding mist growing thicker beneath him, the cannibalistic man slowly lifted his arms as hundreds of blood streams loomed overhead. Smiling hungrily to himself, the monstrous fiend lifted his head and parted his jaw open to an inhuman gape, as all of the streams converged into his mouth in a sickening display of feasting. With the spine-tingling, overwhelming euphoria that coursed through his body, the beastly man's arms reflexively flailed and twitched violently after each stomach-churning gulp. Little blood escaped his mouth as he continued his meal. His eyes literally blackened with sadistic delight as the torrent of human fluids spilled into his being. It was glorious, he could feel his dormant power reawakening. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.